Hello, I'm Carson Wampler.
And I'm Carson Wampler. And today we're going to be talking about the differences between an instructional designer working within an industry like higher education, like myself, and the role that they may have in a large global organization like Casper's. So, Casper, for an instructional designer working with a team to develop a product, very when the rubber hits the road, type team or industry, what differences may we see, or what roles, different types of roles may we see, for an instructional designer in a large global organization?
Well, first of all, I think in larger organizations with learning and development teams, the instructional designer role certainly isn't the only one. In many larger organizations, there are a lot of instructional designers, and what they do is a lot of actually design. They do a lot of actually building the courses, whether that is e-learning or instructor-led classes. They put the materials together. At times, they also do the entire analysis phase and trying to figure out what kind of goals, objectives do we have for this. But typically their roles, well, maybe not typically, but a lot of the time their roles will expand much beyond just the instructional design. At least if you think of an instructional designer as the person who follows an ADDIE or a SAM model.
So you talk about instructional designers in a large organization potentially having a lot more responsibilities and roles to play outside of analyzing and designing for product development.
Yeah.
I mean, are we talking just added responsibilities to the instructional design title, or are we talking about different titles that they could branch out to?
I think both. I think definitely there are other titles. Myself, I'm in learning technology, and that is a different role. It's also different responsibilities. I'm happy that I have some base knowledge about instructional design because it enables me to evaluate content and see whether things were done well. But I'm in technology. I focus on things like learning management systems, learning experience platforms, and to really be ahead of that, it's a totally different, well, not different, but you need some complementary skills like knowing the basics of IT, for instance, maybe knowing something about design, user experience, and so on. So there are different titles for sure. Also management, learning management can be very much about, so the CLO role, for instance, is typically a lot more about being a business leader than just being within learning. The best CLOs understand their business, whether they're in engineering or medical sciences, whatever they're in, they understand their business very well, and they have to do their job well. But I also think that if you're an instructional designer and you come into a business and work there, it is definitely a plus having other skills. Remember your audience. If you're if you're a school teacher or if you're in higher ed, your audience are there out of their own free will, and they don't really either out of their own free will or they don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Right. That's not necessarily the case in a big organization. Our audience may not have the time, they may not even have the interest in attending some of the content we do. For instance, compliance, there are not a lot of people who find that terribly exciting. I cannot blame them, but that's just, so there are some differences, which means the skill set you need to have could, for instance, move into things like how do I engage people? How do I sell this product internally in my organization? How do I market this product internally in my organization? So whether that is explicitly stated into your title or your role, it's definitely skill sets that are valuable or even necessary if you are in a large organization's learning and development organization.
So Casper, you talked about different responsibilities, different roles, possibly different titles,
Mhm.
but what is the actual day-to-day difference that we might see between an instructional designer and, say, a learning partner,
Right.
or even, head of learning technology?
Right.
What are some of those day-to-day differences?
Well, I've been in it for so long that it's hard to see outside the box, but I can tell you a little bit about the different people we have in my organization. In at least in our regional team here in the Americas, we have our head of we're called Learning Campus, head of the learning organization, and a person like that spends a lot of time dealing with other business leaders, whether that's within HR, and typically learning is embedded in HR, but it does not have to be. So a person like that, she would spend a lot of time in dealing with other HR leaders, dealing with business leaders, trying to stay abreast of a company strategy, initiatives, dealing with division CEOs, and then daily management of her team. So she's a leader. She has 18 people reporting to her. And so she needs to have one-to-ones. She needs to develop those people as individuals and as team players. She needs to set the strategy for the team. She needs to do budgets. I mean, that's a big deal, doing the budget for next year.
Yeah.
Approving business travel. Some of the more boring administrative stuff is there as well. So that person, the CLO, may be talking about learning, but at a much more strategic level. They will be talking about things like, all right, we have a new strategy to, become digital as a company. All right, she'll say, learning can support that. We have 8 programs, and we're developing more, and we have 8,000 people who will go through it. We're also developing e-learning. That's it. That's the level it stays at, because that's where she has the attention of business leaders. She will not be talking about ADDIE. She will not be talking about whether it's done in HTML5 or whatever, right? And then below that level, we have people like myself who may be heading up things like technology. I deal with learning management systems, make sure that the admin team have what they need to administrate all the courses and the participants, whether it's in online or instructor-led. We may have an admin team lead. Those people, there are people who need to set up instructor-led classes. Those are still prevalent, and of course they still have a role. When you do that, you need a team to book hotels, you need food, you need to organize all the instructors, you need to do the budgets for those things. We have learning partners as well who are out in the business, out in the divisions, talking to leaders out there about what do you need. Or responding to requests from the business saying, oh, I have someone on my team. We had a conversation about his development and he needs better communication skills. What do you got? And then advising the business on, all right, we have this portfolio of content or courses or resources. I recommend that one.
Okay.
Or maybe setting something up for an entire team or building something new. That happens too. So there are really very many different roles to play in a learning organization, and everyone has their little part to play in that.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Very large and very scaled.
Yes.
Those are definitely some interesting differences between like a smaller higher education institution and something as large as a global company.
Yeah. And I didn't even mention the global management of learning, which becomes even higher up the hierarchy.
So who would be responsible for return on investment? Is that the CLO dealing with the business partners, making sure that their decisions on, say, rolling out, going all digital in the platform, are they convincing them on return on investment and buy-in, or is that somebody else's role?
That is probably a little bit different from organization to organization. But yeah, the CLO could be talking a lot about return on investment for any investments that the CLO is making, or any initiative to put 10,000 people through a training program. If you want to do that, that costs a lot of money. Yeah. So when you're selling that, and you're probably selling that at the very highest levels, because that's where something like that can be agreed to. Yeah, you probably need to talk about return on investment and whatever business case you have for doing what you're trying to do, and that might be a CLO, but it could also be a learning partner. We have learning partners who have customer bases of 10,000 and up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're 80,000 in our region, so my CLO heads up 80,000 people. I do too because I have this functional area. And then some of our learning partners have entire divisions between 10, 15,000 people that they basically try and help develop and learn.
What would you advise an instructional designer that's now currently working within a more legacy process of being there designing learning materials? What if that instructional designer wanted to branch out into company culture, personnel needs that the employees may need, ways that the company can benefit from different management systems, so on and so forth. What would be kind of like their next step to get into that kind of more management phase in making products more for the company itself than for the company's clients?
Well, I mean, let's say you're in higher ed, for instance. I think you need to become a little bit business savvy. Understanding the basics of business is a good idea, because what happens when you move into instructional design in an organization is that you will typically be talking about models like Kirkpatrick in terms of outcomes. And there is a difference between a university student where the ultimate goal is to allow them to do certain things, right? That's not the top goal in an organization. The top goal in an organization is return on investment. That somehow by teaching you as an employee, it's great that you learn new skills. We're happy about that. But at the end of the day, what we really care about is, are you going to provide more value for the company? And so that's a mindset change, and it's a change where you need to understand business and how does a business really make money? What's profit? I think those are things that are really, really important, especially if you've been living in higher ed, where I've been in higher ed, at least at the master's level, not any further than that, but that tends to get very theoretical, get into the core. And that's not so prevalent in business. A lot of the time, business leaders just don't care that much about the details, the theory. They care about the outcomes and whether there's a return on investment. Sales skills, communication skills, and finally, I think collaboration skills are really, really important. Success in a big organization is very reliant on your ability to collaborate with others, navigate political landscapes, dealing with nonsense now and again, especially in large organizations. It's like a big bureaucracy. There is going to be moments in your career where it just doesn't make sense. And to someone who is like deep into a theory where they can clearly see this does not make sense, that can be difficult. It was for me, at least. That's something I had to learn to navigate the political aspects of a big organization as well.
So how might someone want to demonstrate that they can be responsible for return on investment, for being conscious of what it takes to get buy-in, for a particular product and things like that? How would one demonstrate to a company that they have these skills without, say, like a degree in business or a degree in learning and so forth? Say a master's in instructional design or an equivalent master's in like e-development. How would they present themselves as being savvy or being a good fit for that particular position?
Well, I have been in talent acquisition or it was called recruiting in the old days before. And, it's pretty simple. You either have demonstrated that in the past or you have not. That's how modern recruiters work. They ask you to tell about something you've done in the past because they believe past accomplishments will, sort of indicate future accomplishments. So either you've done it or you haven't. Now, if you haven't, that's not necessarily a showstopper. What I would listen for if someone came to me with a background in ID, I would ask, are you interested in this? And then a really good answer would be something like, yes, I am interested in this. I've been reading up about business. I've been watching some YouTube channels. I've been studying about business, and I've been thinking a lot about what is the difference between what I do now and what I've been doing over here. So I think it's a matter of being aware, first of all, that there is this difference, articulating why you find it interesting to move into this, and demonstrating if you've had any experience with business. Then of course you can talk about that.
Those are really great points. So for anyone that's working within instructional design and may not be exposed, or maybe they're just interested in branching out into corporate instructional design culture or learning and development culture, it's important to know that there are many tiers to that learning and development business. And it may not just be contained like an island as far as, developing materials, dealing with SMEs, dealing with clients. There's also another level of management outside of that where you can be responsible for getting buy-in products for the company, ensuring there's return on investment for rolling out particular course material to employees or even to clients. If you are interested, show some business savvy, show some motivation to get into that, and use your skill set and apply it to the company's benefit.
I agree.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Casper. Very enlightening conversation. And again, I'm Carson Wampler, and thank you for watching.